Story 1. My sister was evicted from the family property in late 2023. That year, and the year after, she kept my nephews away during my birthday, just because she wanted to upset our parents. And just to be clear, my birthday is in May. So it was long before she got her eviction notice. For my birthday that year, we were preparing to have lots of pizza and other fun food for my nephews to enjoy. Then we found out, last minute, that my sister was taking them elsewhere that day. A few weeks earlier, my sister and my mother had gotten into a fight. I can't even remember what it was about. But it might have been because my sister was taking advantage of me by not paying her half of the power bills we shared. My mother had argued with her about that several times. My sister still owes me $800 in unpaid power bills. And if you look at my other posts about my sister, you can get an idea of what kind of frustrating person she can be. So no surprise, she's also incredibly spiteful. It was only days before my 2023 birthday that we found out my sister was taking her kids out, and she took them to a certain popular family fun restaurant with games for both kids and adults, just so they'd have a much more exciting time on that day than hanging out with me. My birthday ended up being awkward, just my parents and I sitting at a table with gifts, pizza, and cake. Everyone in the family was upset when they found out. And my sister? She didn't care. She did it all to get back at our parents, especially our mother. The following year, she pretty much did the same thing, but worse. She outright forbade my nephews from coming over to visit and kept them in a hot, cramped apartment she was sharing with a friend. When my nephews realized why she had done it the first time, they were a bit torn. On one hand, they had missed my birthday, but on the other, they had a fun day out with their mother. The second time around, they were genuinely upset with her. Especially my middle nephew. He let her know exactly how he felt about it. After she kept my nephews away the first time, my sister noticed I wasn't happy with her for what she had done. So she told me she was going to take me out to celebrate another day to make up for it. She even promised. Guess what? That never happened. Every one of her birthdays, right up through 2023, we had taken her out on our own dime to celebrate. Her birthday in 2022, we took her to a fancy steakhouse, and she absolutely loved it. Other years, we took her to a gourmet pizza restaurant she also enjoyed. Even for her 2024 birthday, after I had gone no contact with her, our parents still took her out to celebrate. But no, she couldn't show the same kindness on other people's birthdays, except for her boyfriend who passed away in 2023 in an accident. In 2022, she convinced me to drive all the way to the coast to celebrate his birthday at a restaurant chain we actually have locally. I had to drive over 100 miles back home in the middle of the night. I have never known the same level of courtesy from my sister that I gave to her on birthdays or otherwise. She tormented me when we were kids, and as an adult, she's become an entitled, self-centered hypocrite. The one time she took me out for my birthday, it was to a place meant for kids. I ended up pretending to have a good time and spent a bunch of my own money on the claw machine games. The go-karts they had there were not only slow, but everyone else laughed and drove past me because I was the heaviest person in the group by about 50 pounds. The carts were so underpowered that they just slowed to a crawl, no matter which one I drove. And then, when it was time to leave, my sister sent me into the big tube structure to get my nephews because they wouldn't come out. I was the second tallest person there and the heaviest. And none of the adults could have gone in there. All three of my nephews had awful gas and filled that place with a smell so bad it made my eyes water. Imagine crawling through a tube that smells like rotten eggs. They kept moving around, and I had to hunt them down one by one and make them come out and go to their mom. Then it turns out I had lost my cell phone in there, and I only noticed after we left, so we had to go back to get it, and I had to crawl right back into that eye-watering stench, only to find out it wasn't even in there. It had somehow fallen outside, below the play structure. My sister openly found the whole situation hilarious for years. She would laugh at me if I had to crawl through a sewer. My sister didn't even start to realize how badly she had messed things up until after my birthday in 2024. That was when she openly forbade my nephews from coming to visit. My middle nephew went off on her about it. He later apologized to me on the day I went to pick up my eldest nephew to take him to his junior prom. My sister also walked up to my window with her usual, "Please feel sorry for me" face and said, "I'm sorry I kept the boys away on your birthday." I barely responded to her, and when she realized she wasn't getting sympathy from me, she slowly walked off. She gets her sons 1 to 2 weekends a month, and the day of my eldest nephew's junior prom just happened to fall on a weekend she had them. But I'll save that story for another post. Thankfully, my sister did not have the decision-making power she thought she had. She tried to outright forbid my nephews from visiting, but her former partner has majority custody and he allows them to come visit. Recently, we visited him. We get along with him very well, and he's a great father. When my sister found out my nephews were visiting us, she threw a tantrum. But now, she seems resigned to the fact that she can't do anything about it. Story 2. So this was a story from the time in which everyone bought up horrendous amounts of toilet paper for no reason during the pandemic. At one point, I had worked at the store I was shopping in, but at this point, I was not working there, and it had been over 2 years since I had worked there. So I had to get to the store extremely early and stand in line for 2 hours before they opened to get 1 pack of toilet paper, and the lucky ones of us that actually ran to the toilet paper aisle were the ones that got the big packs, because the store only lets you have 1 pack. It doesn't matter if it was 4 rolls or 16 rolls. You only got 1 pack. So I was fortunate enough to get one of the larger packs of toilet paper. I actually did need toilet paper. It was my mother's regular shopping day, so I actually grabbed 2 packs to put in the cart. I did not live with my parents at this time, so I was walking around with the 2 packs, and they wouldn't take one of them away from you until you got to the checkout, so you could walk around the store with multiple packs in your cart. But it wasn't till you got to the register that they took the rest out. I called my mother to see if she needed toilet paper because if she did, this was her typical shopping day. I was going to do the rest of my shopping and wait on her, then hand it over to her, because by the time she got there, there wouldn't be any left. She told me that she had enough toilet paper and she didn't need any, so by this time, the shelves were pretty bare. All that was left was basically paper towels. I heard an elderly woman on the phone sounding like she was about to cry. I even got here early. But then everybody ran. When I got to the toilet paper, there wasn't any left. I've not had any toilet paper for 2 days. This is the 3rd store I've gone to this week. This is just horrible. So of course, not needing the toilet paper in my car anymore, hearing this lady who looks to be about 70 about to cry on the phone because she couldn't run fast enough to get toilet paper, which is absolutely horrible. Elderly people shouldn't have to outrun other people to get toilet paper. I go up to her and ask her if she was looking for any specific brand or anything, and she tells me she doesn't care what brand it is. She just needs toilet paper. So I take the other one out of my cart and I give it to her. She seems so happy, but then seems sad, saying that she doesn't want to take it from someone else. I explained to her about my mother and why I had the 2nd pack, and how people were only allowed to buy 1 pack anyway. She was extremely happy and basically said that I must have been sent from God to bless her and all of that. But here comes the moment you all have been waiting for, after the sweet elderly woman walks off to either shop or go check out. I don't know, but she was out of the area when this happened. A woman comes walking up to my cart and starts to take the toilet paper out of it. Me. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Lady, getting my toilet paper. That ain't your toilet paper. That's my toilet paper. Get your hands out of my cart. No, this isn't. You're handing out toilet paper. No, I'm not. You just gave some to that hag over there. I had. She cuts me off. Because you work here and you're handing it out, stop denying me toilet paper. Lady, I ain't worked here in 2 years, you can just get lost. I start to walk away with my cart and my toilet paper. Lady, you stupid witch. She comes walking up behind me and tries to rip it out of my cart. I swing my cart from under her and she falls on her face. Well, not really on her face, but she falls forward onto the ground. I'm going to have you charged with assault. Good luck. This place is covered in cameras, and I wasn't the one that jumped on your cart, so have fun. I proceeded to go check out and happened to see the elderly woman checking out with her toilet paper and her other groceries. I don't even know whatever happened to that lady, but I'm glad I've never seen her again. I hope she never found toilet paper. I hope she had to wipe with paper towels. Story 3. As the title says, this happened quite a few years ago when I 30-year-old female was a kid under 10 years old, but the entitlement still stings. My parents were in the middle of a difficult divorce. My dad had moved several hours' drive away and was now living with the other party cited in the solicitor's papers. That person would later become my stepmother. Even though I was only a child, I was semi-aware of what was really going on. It wasn't the first time my dad had moved out because of another woman, but it was the first time the word divorce had been used. In the past, he had always come home after a few weeks, full of apologies. So when my stepmother first met me and loudly declared, "Call me Mum," I was immediately in her bad books for responding, "No, thank you." But her sense of entitlement only got worse. While my dad was in the process of moving in with my stepmother and sorting out custody with my mum and the solicitors, he would sometimes take me out on day trips. However, the stepmother always came along too. I became her little project. I wasn't the prettiest kid, but my mum had always told me to enjoy being a child and not worry about appearances just yet. In contrast, my stepmother's children, one older than me and one younger, both wore makeup and dressed like they were heading to a nightclub. As her little project, I had to look like I was going out clubbing too. My clothes would be taken away as soon as she saw me and replaced with crop tops and mini skirts. She'd sit me down and force my hair into plaits with heavy hair gel. My original clothes would always conveniently go missing when it was time to go home. But my mum couldn't say anything about the replacement outfits, because if even a single hair clip I had been made to wear went missing, my dad would call on my stepmother's behalf, talking about solicitors and even police involvement for theft of property. Eventually, a custody arrangement was worked out where I lived full-time with my mom and stayed with my dad during school holidays. That first and last week was rough for me. In all fairness, my dad did try to keep me entertained. But I wasn't used to living with other children. I was an only child, and sleeping in a strange place after never having been away from my mum in my whole life made it very uncomfortable. After a few days, I privately confessed to my dad that I missed my mum. Looking back, I understand that probably hurt his feelings. But I wasn't asking to go home, I was just hoping to use his mobile phone to call her. I had used my stepmother's landline the day before, but she hovered and listened the whole time, and it just felt awkward. Dad looked upset, but told me to go eat some lunch, so off I went, and that's where my stepmother's entitled behavior exploded. While sitting next to my stepsister, I suddenly had a plate slapped down in front of me by my stepmother. There. I was confused but said thank you and started to eat. Throughout the meal, she made snide comments in my direction, while talking to her daughter things like, "Ah, well done, sweetheart. See, you'll never disappoint me, unlike someone I know." I was a very timid kid, so I don't know where I got the burst of confidence to speak up. But I asked, "Is something wrong?" My stepmother snapped back, "You know what, dear? Your father is very important to me, and you've really hurt his feelings." I tried to explain, but she snatched my plate and walked out of the room. I followed her, still hungry, and tried to take my plate back, but she just completely lost her temper. Standing in the hallway with this almost stranger yelling in my face is something I'm never going to forget. Apparently, I was an ungrateful brat, and she washed her hands of me. I burst into tears and completely shrank into myself as she just kept yelling. A little reminder, I was a child under 10 years old, and she was over 30. My only mistake was missing my mother. I honestly think she should have been the adult in that situation and shown some empathy. How entitled do you have to be to think it's okay to yell at a crying child? So yeah, not something I'm likely to forget. End result, I was taken home that day, several hours of driving with my dad, sitting in total, bone-crushing silence. It did affect our relationship, unfortunately. While my stepmother was raising her voice throughout the house, I vividly remember seeing my dad through my waterfall of tears standing at the top of the stairs, just watching us and saying absolutely nothing. I have no idea what he told my mom to explain why I was home 2 days early, but I never spoke to her about it. Today is actually the first time I've shared this story other than telling my husband when we first met and were swapping difficult family experiences. Fortunately, in the 2 decades since, I've only seen my stepmother twice, both times at family gatherings where we happily ignored each other. Edit. Just correcting some spelling mistakes and saying wow, thank you so much for the outpouring of kindness. It really helped me to see things more clearly. Up until now, I suppose I was unintentionally convincing myself that I somehow deserved her shouting at me the way she did. I just wanted to add a detail from after that blow-up. The custody arrangement changed after that day. I never stayed at, or visited, my stepmother's house again. Instead, it was agreed that my dad would pick me up from school every other Friday, and we would stay with his parents until Sunday afternoon, when he dropped me back off with my mom. And honestly, it was always a bit awkward from that point on. Mostly because I was resentful that he didn't step in and defend me against my stepmother. I still don't know why he didn't, especially since he had always said and still does when he's feeling sentimental that if anyone spoke to me like that or ever hurt me, he'd step in immediately. See where my confusion comes from. He always said he'd be on my side, so the fact that he wasn't made me wonder if maybe I really had done something wrong. That kind of thinking sticks with you. Also, just for context, my dad and stepmother weren't married at the time of that outburst. They got married a few months later, while on holiday abroad. I was invited, but the invitation only arrived a week before they were due to leave, and it felt pretty half-hearted. Dad blamed the solicitors for not delivering the message in time, even though my parents were already divorced by then. The situation remained very tense, and communication was still going through legal channels for about a year after the divorce. Mom wanted to keep things official for a while because Dad tended to get overly and loudly offended at everything. One time, he dropped me off with Mom. They started arguing. Her new boyfriend stepped in, and the following week a solicitor's letter showed up claiming his side had been harmed by the altercation. So, Mom wasn't too keen on me going to their wedding. There were too many horror stories floating around about children being taken during or after divorces. So, I said, no, thank you, and didn't go. Honestly, I would have felt out of place anyway. Full disclosure, though, I do still love my dad. We get along when we chat via text occasionally, but we don't see each other very much. I just don't agree with most of his decisions, with my stepmother being a pretty big one. For years, Dad would gloat about how attractive she was in comparison to my mom. He'd tell my mom he had traded up, bragging about how his new partner had a flat stomach and a pierced belly button, while my slim mom still had a saggy belly from giving birth to me. My stepmother, of course, seemed to enjoy those compliments. I always remember her flipping her red hair dramatically whenever he called her gorgeous. But tables have turned. Over 2 decades later, my mom looks almost exactly the same except for some gray hairs, while my stepmother is now on the larger side, and her red hair is clearly from a bottle. A tiny bit of satisfaction there, I must admit. Story 4. I've been coaching kids baseball for about 5 years. Got into it when my little cousin joined the local youth league and they needed volunteers. I played baseball in college, just club level, but I loved the game. Coaching let me stay connected to it and help kids build confidence. Most parents were fine. A few got too into it, but it usually didn't go too far. Until last month. It happened during a weekend tournament, semifinals. My team was made up of 10-year-olds. Great kids with good attitudes. We were playing against a strong team. Emotions were high, but it was still a game. That's when I noticed this woman. I hadn't seen her before. She had a glittery shirt that said something about being a baseball mom. She was loud. Every pitch, every play, she reacted to all of it. Definitely there for the other team. Her voice carried through the stands constantly, cheering her team and mocking ours. I figured I'd ignore it. Near her in the bleachers was a young boy, probably 8 or 9. I later found out he was the younger brother of one of my players. He wore our team's hat and cheered whenever we made a good play. He wasn't being loud or causing trouble, just an excited kid watching his brother. Things got tense when we hit a home run and took the lead. The crowd cheered. The boy jumped up and clapped. That's when the woman snapped. She told him to sit down and said no one wanted to hear him. The boy told her he was cheering for his brother. She told him his brother's team was garbage, and so was he for supporting them. Some parents started looking her way. A couple shook their heads. A few innings later, we scored again. The boy clapped. She walked over and kicked him. She kicked him hard enough that he fell back and hit his arm on the bench. He yelled out and asked why she did that. She said it was to teach him not to cheer for the wrong team. I dropped everything and ran over. I asked what was wrong with her. She said the kid had been running his mouth and deserved it. I told her she just assaulted a child. She said he was fine and that we were too soft. The kid's mom, who had been sitting a few rows away with a stroller, ran over. She had seen the end of what happened and asked if the woman just hit her son. The woman said she didn't hit him, just gave him the discipline someone needed to give. She acted like she did nothing wrong. Everything went quiet. Even the other team's parents looked shocked. I told her I was calling the police. She rolled her eyes and said nobody would care. I made the call anyway. She tried to walk off. I had the umpire pause the game. The police got there fast. They separated everyone and got statements. At least 6 people had seen what happened. One parent had recorded the whole thing. The police talked to the woman. She said everyone was lying. She claimed the boy was cheering against her son and she had the right to be upset. They told her that didn't give her the right to touch someone else's kid. They arrested her in the bleachers. The kid was still shaken, but okay. His mom took him to urgent care. Just a bruise, nothing broken. I gave my statement. With the witnesses and the video, I pressed charges for the family. The officers said the case was solid. 2 weeks later, the kid's mom called me. She said the woman tried to plead out, but the district attorney moved forward. She was charged with assaulting a minor. The video made it easy. Turns out she had been on the parent board at her son's school. After the arrest, they removed her. Her son was off the team for the rest of the season. Word spread fast through the league. No one wanted her involved anymore. Coaches and schools shut her out. At our next practice, the boy showed up again. His arm was healing. He wore a new team hat. The team clapped when he arrived. He smiled and said his arm was okay, and he'd keep cheering for us. That was enough for me. Story 5. I live in the UK, and this happened when I was 18, fresh out of college in 2006. I used to work at a nightclub, and our uniform consisted of black trousers, a black t-shirt with the nightclub's logo on the front, and the name in big, bold letters on the back, black shoes and socks, and a black fleece with a big logo on the back. Across from us was a superstore which opened up early in the morning, and I usually stopped by on my way for the morning shift to restock the 3 bars inside the nightclub for the upcoming night. Their uniform is similar to ours, and I often got stopped briefly because some people thought I was a staff, before realizing their mistake, apologizing, and then going off to find an actual member of staff. So I was used to it, and often laughed about it with the other person if I saw them again. I would also help out anyone who was polite and asked for help. Story. I start my shifts at 11 a.m., and I usually stop by the superstore to pick up some lunch to eat during my 15-minute break at the nightclub. I get to the store, and as I'm walking through the store I see the cleaner, who I usually work with while stocking the bars, and decide to go over and have a chat. As we walked around the store, I helped grab things off the top shelves for her, and she thanked me. My coworker is this really nice old lady, and I often called her Grams as a nickname. Now Grams was a former martial arts instructor, but left a few years prior due to breaking her hip. But she still wasn't someone to mess with. I knew this from personally seeing her flip a guy 3 times her size on his butt, because he was shoplifting at the superstore we were at. Everyone loved her. This is relevant later, so I say goodbye as it's now 10:30 and I don't want to be late. Grams apparently had the day off, so it would be the rare day I worked alone with the jerk of the nightclub and was not looking forward to it. As I was making my way to the sandwich aisle, I heard it, the dreaded sound of self-entitlement. I knew it well as I constantly dealt with this type, and knew if I turned round it was all over, so I did the smart thing and ignored it, making my way towards the delicious smell of sandwiches. This, my friends, is mistake number 1. Entitled woman, excuse me. I feel a disturbance in the force and try to ignore it, but a sharp thwack to the back of my leg brings me round, and I face the source of the disturbance I felt, and there before me was a troll, or so it looked like at first. Now I don't like confrontation. I tend to try and avoid it if possible, and at that time the stress of work had steadily piles on me, and I was currently on medication for anxiety. It was nowhere near as bad as it is now, but I still tried my best to stay out of these types of situations, but I was trapped. Me? Can I do something for you? She looked at me with an indignant smirk that immediately made me want to run away. But to my left was a rather tall, bulky middle-aged man blocking my escape, as to my right was a display counter, as well as behind me. I was cornered. With a big grin on her face, the entitled woman spoke to me in a condescending tone. I saw you help another lady earlier with her shopping. I would like you to go fetch this list for me. She thrust a small piece of paper at me with handwriting so bad I couldn't read it. And since I too had really bad handwriting that was saying something. Me, oh, but I don't work here, I work. She cuts me off. Don't lie, young man, I saw you helping that woman with all her shopping and you're in uniform, so there. I look at myself and yes, I am in my uniform, but I'm wearing my fleece which clearly has the nightclub's logo printed on the back large enough you can't mistake it, even if you're legally blind. Me. No ma'am, you're... At the point, I get a shove from the bulky guy next to me. Dumb entitled son, stop lying to my mother, you jerk, and go get our stuff. But sir, I'm not lying. I don't want your excuses, I want my mother's shopping. This time, he goes to grab me when a small, very recognizable hand grabs his wrist. Grams, excuse me, but why are you harassing my grandson? I was shocked she actually called me her grandson, but was grateful for the save anyway. Dumb entitled son, what are you talking about, you senile old fool? This person is an employee, and you are lying to cover for him. This guy had just messed up, big time. Grams was a nice person, really nice if you stayed on her good side, but cross the line, push the wrong button, say the wrong thing, and you were done for. Grams twists the guy's arm behind his back, and begins escorting him to the front of the store with his entitled mother and me in tow. When we were 6 feet from where the security guards were stationed, he continued to call Grams every name under the sun. Entitled son, get off me, you crazy old coon. I could physically hear Grams' patience snap. What happened next was not what his guy had been expecting. Grams let him go. Him. Finally, I'm going. He never finished his sentence as Graham's small fist was now buried deep in the jerk's stomach. Told you, not someone you should mess with. She then floored the guy, flipping him by his arm onto his back, then flipping him over onto his protruding stomach, before twisting his arms behind his back and hog-tying him with some rope she had just purchased, and to finish it off, shoved an apple in the guy's mouth. Grams then looked to the now not-so-entitled old lady. Grams, you and your pig-headed son can take a hike, and if I ever see you here or messing with my darling grandson again, just know I am prepared to go to jail. I was stunned. The security guards were stunned. Workers and shoppers who had come to see what all the commotion was about were stunned. My Grams called over 2 workers, asked them to pick the guy up, and I kid you not, she pulled over an empty shopping cart and had them put the guy in it, then shoved him out the door to the horror and dismay of the not-so-entitled old lady who ran after him. Not surprisingly, the police were called. I was late to work after giving a statement and Grams was issued with a fine and had court a month later. But due to her age was only given another fine which she paid, and 250 hours of unpaid community service. When I asked her later why she did all that just for me, her response was something I still tear up about. Grams, because you remind me of my late son, who I never really got to spend time with, and maybe it's because seeing him in you. I just wanted to spoil you a little. I love you, Panda, like a son, so don't ever lose that kindness of yours. Grams passed away a year later. I attended her funeral and even told this story when I was asked if there was anyone who wanted to say a few words. Story 6. For context, I have 4 chickens who live in a cozy coop at the end of my back garden. One of them, Whiskey, has survived a fox attack, is 8 years old and still laying eggs, and we affectionately refer to her as our guard chicken or the snitch because she will scream for us if any intruders, usually squirrels, enter our yard or any of the other chickens escape. It was a nice, sunny Sunday morning, and I had my friends over for brunch when I hear Whiskey screaming and look out the window to see the neighbor's kid crouched down next to my chicken coop. Me, hey, what are you doing? Kid, I'm just getting my ball back, holding 2 balls. Me, why get out of my garden? Kid, that's not very nice. Me, well, it's not very nice to break into other people's gardens. At this point, he climbs back into his garden through a gap in the fence at the very back of the garden. Meanwhile, I've gone to knock on their front door to speak to their parents, assuming that they must not know this was happening. Me, hi, did you know your son was breaking into our garden? Dad, immediately yelling, is it okay, what you said to my son? Me, what, telling him he can't break into our property? Dad, he's just a kid, it's okay for him to do that. Me, no, legally he can't. I don't want random kids messing about with my chickens. Dad, you threatened my kid. You swore at him. Me, I never threatened him. I just wanted him off my property. Dad, it's fine for kids to do that. You know what? I don't have to listen to this. Goes to slam the door in my face, but stops when I step forward onto their doorstep, but not into their house. Me, how would you like it if I broke into your garden? Dad, they're kids. It's okay. You're threatening them. Call the police. At this point, my unfortunate tendency to cry when I'm angry started to get the better of me, so I stepped back and yelled that I wanted to speak to the police, actually because I had done nothing wrong. Then went back into my house. I did end up calling the non-emergency line, and the operator I spoke to reassured me that they were definitely not entitled to break in, kids or not. And even if I swore at them, I was unsure because I do swear a lot in general without even noticing. But my friends who witnessed the whole thing assured me that I hadn't broken any laws. So now we have to fix the fence gap and hope that the unhinged adult man living next door who thinks it's perfectly fine to wander onto people's yard without permission doesn't decide to do that again himself. I'm starting to doubt that this was the first time the kids had broken in, as Whiskey had been screaming all day Saturday, much more than she would for a squirrel or bird, but I couldn't see anything when I checked.